sounds of alarms echoed throughout the entire building, so loudly that Dr. Sebastian couldn't hear anything but the painful beeping and the sounds of his own footsteps, carrying him away from the nightmares lurking within. The red light from the alarms looked more menacing than ever, but the only thing Dr. Sebastian could think about was how desperately he needed to reach the safe room, or anywhere he might be protected from it. His bloodied palm clutched his left shoulder, which bore a bite mark far too large to have come from any dog. It was painful, so excruciating, as if those very teeth were still piercing him even now. The agony overwhelmed his 46-year-old body, and he collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Gritting his teeth, he winced, barely able to breathe through the torment. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not ever. The perimeter was meant to be secure, and even if the subjects escaped, they were supposed to be prepared for situations like this. With a groan, he stood up, but his shoulder felt like it would fall from the rest of his body sooner than later. That's when the alarm stopped completely, and the whole building fell into silence. Because the normal lights were messed up, a backup system turned the lights back on, but it didn't make the situation any less terrifying. The building had once been filled not only with alarms, but also gunshots, screams, and the sounds and roars from their own creations. Now it was only a pit of death, where a human like him would only end up as a meal. He weakly stood up, but even his knees were barely holding him together. The bite must have inflicted some kind of poison, slowly damaging his entire system, but he wasn't sure. He had only just arrived, merely as an assistant from his old workplace, where he had worked as a doctor in times of need. His clumsy attempt to stand was at least successful, though he nearly lost his balance again. He glanced at his shoulder once more, then quickly looked away. It was a horrible sight. Still, he kept going, slowly making his way toward the safe room that was finally in view. The safe rooms, built with heavy steel doors capable of withstanding even a grenade explosion, were stocked with enough food, water, communication systems he could only hope were still functional. His hope for safety, so close and almost within reach, was suddenly shattered by the sound that echoed through the building, sending chills down his spine. A screech, animalistic, almost normal in any other context, but here, absolutely terrifying. It was followed by another, identical in tone. Not evil, not malicious, just a natural sound. But it came from something unnatural, from a mouth that should never have existed. Upon realizing the source of the sound, his heartbeat quickened even more. With every ounce of strength he had left, he began to walk, weakly at first, then faster, toward the door. But strangely, the screeches, as intimidating as they were to him, began to fade. They didn't stop abruptly. They dissolved into the void, as if whatever was making them was retreating, growing more distant with each passing second. Sebastian nearly stumbled as he finally reached for the door handle. The cold steel against his palm jolted him awake, grounding him in the moment. The silence behind him was reassuring. No more screeches, no more echoes. But when he tried to open the door, it didn't budge. It was locked, or jammed. Either way, his sanctuary was just inches away, and still out of reach. His eyes widened as he tried to move the handle again, this time more forcefully, almost desperately. It didn't budge an inch. He attempted to open it with both hands, but as he tried to lift his left arm, a wave of agony shot through his entire body. It wasn't just his shoulder anymore. He could barely move his entire left hand. He cried out in pain and clutched his shoulder, only for his body to respond with another surge of torment that forced him to lean against the wall, nearly collapsing. Tears streamed down his face as he looked towards the door. With what little strength he had left, he crawled weakly toward it, using only one hand. He managed to knock twice, loudly, his voice trembling with fear and desperation as he called out. "Please," he said with a trembling voice. "Is anybody in there? Open the door, please." He banged on the door again, though this time weakly. "Open the fucking door." But the only answer he received was his own echo. At least, it was supposed to be, because just as all hope drained from him, and he raised his hand to bang on the door once more, he heard it. Open the door." His own words, but they sounded like they came from a broken radio, or from a person who has trouble speaking properly. They didn't come from his lips anymore, nor from behind the door. They came from behind him. Dread began to creep over Sebastian, and the only thing he managed was to turn his head slightly behind him. And there he saw it. A creature. A dinosaur. A young but still not small Dilophosaurus. Its body was carried by two strong, tall hind legs. Its skin was gray, with small black lines, and its front limbs were long, ending in three sharp, slender claws. Its back was covered with something that looked like feathers. It was around 6 meters long and 2.5 meters tall, but its size wasn't the scariest part. What made this predator terrifying was that it seemed to be something more than a mere dinosaur. The way it looked at Sebastian, or rather the way it didn't, because it probably wasn't looking at him at all. It was simply aware of his presence. Where its eyes should have been, there was nothing but medium-sized black holes. Its mouth was closed, yet its sharp teeth remained visible, jagged and menacing. It was monstrous. For a moment, Sebastian forgot the pain. The sheer sight of the creature in front of him consumed every thought. And then, a clicking sound echoed from the Dilophosaurus's mouth, its head tilted to the side, unnaturally slow, and its jaws parted just enough to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth that looked like they could tear through flesh as easily as a knife through butter. It looked like it could attack at any second, and yet, it didn't. Sebastian had no idea what to do. The only thing he wanted was to get as far away as possible from this creature that was supposed to be a dinosaur. And then, all the lights went out. Not just in the room, probably in the entire building. Everything. Sebastian, the hallway, the creature, was swallowed by complete, pitch-black darkness. And then, the same screeches, louder and more sinister, began to echo throughout the entire building. They were so loud it felt as if they were right next to him. As if the pain in his body wasn't enough, his ears began to ache, and he could feel blood dripping down from them. He managed to cover one ear with his hand, but the screeches continued. At first, they were overwhelming. Then, slowly, they began to fade, down and down and down, as if whatever was making them was moving farther and farther away, followed up by silence yet again. Sebastian, breathing heavily, pulled his hand away from his ear, but his breath was growing shallow. The ringing in his ears left him dazed and disoriented. What happened? Did it leave? Did it run away, he wondered? Did it lose interest? A guttural roar shattered the silence. Footsteps thundered towards him. The Dilophosaurus burst into view, its mouth wide open. Sebastian could do nothing but scream in terror and pain as its teeth sank deep into its face. The sounds of flesh being torn, bones snapping like dried twigs, screams of agony echoing through the halls. These were the only sounds for the reaming, terrified souls hiding behind the door. Frozen, silent, praying they wouldn't be next.